very few genres of storytelling are as popular as fantasy. Some of the most classic stories ever told by mankind were precisely those in which elves, dwarves, humans, and a myriad of other races built their civilizations while fighting against the forces of darkness. Worlds embedded in magic and wonder, where everything is possible. This popularity is not limited to the West. The Japanese popular culture is filled with manga and anime sharing fantastic stories. But one type, one subgenre of those stories, stands out among the others. Isekai, a term that means literally another world, is probably the most usual kind of fantasy story in Japanese media. Since the 90s, with classics like Inuyasha, these stories gained massive popularity over the years. The ordinary main character living in our reality is often reincarnated or teleported into a fantastic world in which they have to deal with a completely different, supernatural, and magical environment, facing obstacles and gaining new abilities, meeting unexpected allies and powerful foes. However, especially after the massive success of Sword Art Online in 2012, this subgenre took a surprisingly dark turn. Rather than having young and unexperienced protagonists, these stories now often have adults as their main characters. Normal men who suffer from a boring existence with virtually no meaning. They have jobs they don't enjoy and are deeply lonely, having their only joy attached to their gaming habits. And I relate to that. Being in my mid-20s as a gamer and not being particularly social, it's easy to observe that I'm most likely part of the target audience of those anime. Yet, I didn't enjoy them as much as I thought I would, and analyzing them a bit more carefully made me realize the disturbing truth behind their narratives. Failure is something that almost all human beings have in common. It can be a very good way to motivate yourself to do better and improve in life. And writing characters that suffered the pain of feeling like they failed in life is not a problem on its own. The modern isekai protagonist is often an individual facing the emotional suffering of being rejected by society, having to deal with overwhelming loneliness, or maybe some psychological struggle caused by an ordinary life in which the routine appears to be unimportant and meaningless. We have all faced similar obstacles in our lives. Those are real problems that can create genuine depth to a character or a story. The problem lies in the fact that such depth almost never occurs in modern isekai. Those characters usually give in to their bad feelings and become entirely hopeless, taking no accountability for their situation and being entirely self-absorbed in their own unhappiness in a completely selfish way. Reincarnating in another world becomes the only possible turning point for their lives. Once they have the chance to live a new life, the new world they are an important part of only highlights the fact that their past lives were nothing but an empty vessel with almost no memories or lessons. They simply achieve what they always wanted through the mysterious second chance they got, with no real merit or effort. The new world is conveniently favorable towards them, often giving them the affection, the blessed powers, the friends, and the servers they never had in their past lives, allowing them to overcome any obstacles they face with relative ease. If only they could have had those things before, they would certainly not have suffered in the way they did. It almost feels like they're not really succeeding, but rather just dreaming about their own success, about how good their lives could be if they just were a little luckier. Besides, most of these characters are designed with some insecurities, but not a particularly striking personality or a specific and well-developed past. Their purpose is to be essentially a blank page for the audience's self-insertion. Several of the conflicts and interactions of the narrative are overly simplified, feeling tremendously generic and causing a drastic decay in the quality of the story over time. All of those things ultimately turn isekai anime into a superficial and self-indulging escapism, with the sole purpose of fulfilling the viewer's desire of living that fantasy. It's not like that can't be entertaining. but it's also as meaningless as the main protagonists' lives were before falling into their new reality. Of course, some isekai are outliers that try to have much better world building, creating a more interesting environment, or main characters that are actual protagonists with real personalities, qualities, and flaws. But the subgenre is so crowded with the misuse of these fantasy elements that it becomes almost impossible for the good anime in it to stand out. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to find one of those hidden gems, an anime that truly fixes all of the most evident problems with isekai. Written as a light novel and later adapted into a manga and, in 2016, into an anime, Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash surprised me in almost every way. While watching it for the first time, I felt different. All of the elements we would expect from an isekai were present. The medieval or magical setting, the battles, the gaming elements, and the travelers from another world. The fantasy and wonder of a new reality played their part. Yet, the way those elements were used in the story felt much more genuine, grounded, and human. That's what made me realize how much this anime contrasts with most others in the genre. For starters, the common trope of having a single protagonist transported between worlds is absent. Instead, we have several travelers, none of whom remember their previous lives. They aren't chosen to fulfill a grand prophecy or become the demon king of this new world. They are just ordinary people. Some naturally excel more than others, but the party formed by Minato, Haruhiro, and the other main characters consists of individuals rejected by the other groups, making their journey specially challenging. Rather than centering the story around a generic and uninspired main character, the distinct and complementary personalities of the protagonists take the spotlight, making each of them unique and compelling in their own way. Shihoru, the mage of the group, is shy and reserved, but exceptionally kind and cooperative, while Ranta, the Dread Knight, is brash and hot-headed, but undeniably courageous. The character interactions feel meaningful, never reducing them to mere plot devices for trivial power-ups or shallow comedic relief. The world of Grimgar feels authentic in its indifference. While the atmosphere can be beautiful and welcoming at times, it's also unrelentingly harsh and unforgiving. The relationships and challenges faced by the party are consistently engaging. Even when humor is present, it never undermines the depth of the interactions. Each character has a role, and the group's contrasting personalities often create friction. However, their ability to navigate these differences while relying on one another for survival makes the narrative intense and captivating. Their emotions, sometimes joy, sometimes sorrow, are profoundly convincing, from the pain of loss to the struggle of finding a way forward. It's also worth noting that all the classic elements of an isekai are here: monsters, dungeons, spells, different classes, skill acquisition. The video game-like mechanics are ever present. However, even in this familiar framework, the visceral reality of having to kill a goblin, another creature, to survive is depicted in an incredibly relatable way. The adrenaline, hesitation, and emotional weight of taking a life are vividly portrayed. The anime shows us not just a group of gamers farming for loot, but the raw experience of hunting a dangerous creature in the wild. The party's progress is gradual, and the growth of each character underscores the story's well-paced narrative. Instead of an overpowered protagonist who effortlessly dominates any opponent, we see hardworking individuals striving to improve for the sake of their companions. Their evolution comes from effort and experience, driven by the trauma of losing friends or feeling like they have let the others down. These struggles inspire them to overcome personal flaws and become better warriors, rangers, mages, and better companions and leaders. Isekai stories often revolve around escaping a flawed existence for an undeserved second chance. But Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash isn't about abandoning a broken life. It's about embracing the reality around you, with all its beauty and challenges, no matter how daunting. It's about confronting your weaknesses and insecurities, knowing that overcoming them will not only make you stronger, but also enable you to support those who share your journey. And this journey is never easy, but it's possible. In its visuals, landscapes, dialogues, emotions, and lessons, Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash brought me joy and satisfaction in a way very few stories have. It's a deeply human narrative. If you enjoy analysis like this, consider liking the video and subscribing to this channel. This is one of the best ways to support any creators you enjoy, and it's always greatly appreciated. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.